Hi everyone, this is Cabane the Christian. I've been doing a lot of reading about Mormonism recently, and I've been doing reading about Mormonism because I consider Mormonism to be one of the most fascinating religious movements in American religious history, and indeed in world religious history. I also think that there's a great number of Latter-day Saint scholars who have been essentially ignored by the traditional Christian community, and their scholarly output has far outpaced the apologetic critiques of Mormonism by counter-cult authors such as Walter Martin or John Ankerberg, and I believe that these scholars deserve a response. In this brief video, I just want to provide 4 reasons why I think the Book of Mormon is a modern text, and 4 cultural backgrounds which inform the text of the Book of Mormon. Brant Gardner, he's a LDS scholar, has written in his book, Traditions of the Fathers, the Book of Mormon is History, that the way to determine the setting of the Book of Mormon is to supply the unstated cultural backgrounds which make sense of the book, and Gardner attempts to make the case that Mesoamerican culture provides the cultural background of the Book of Mormon. Now, I'm not going to address that directly in this video, but what I do want to do is provide 4 elements in the Book of Mormon which are from the culture of the 19th century, which appear to inform the narrative of the book. The strongest case for a modern origin of the Book of Mormon is then not how poorly the book fits in the context of ancient American archaeology, but how perfectly the Book of Mormon fits in the context of American culture in the 1820s. 4 elements stand out. First, the presence of revivalistic language in the sermons of the preachers of the Book of Mormon. King Benjamin, for example, erects a tower. People come for miles about and pitch tents. He preaches a farewell sermon about the necessity of faith in Christ, before the birth of Christ, and people fall over in waves of emotion. This fits very precisely with revivalism during the 1820s, and particularly an 1826 revival held 1 mile north of Joseph Smith's home. When a retiring preacher built a platform to speak on, people came from miles about and pitched tents. He preached a farewell sermon on the necessity of faith in Christ, and men and women fell over in waves of emotion. This fits the cultural background of American Protestantism far better than it does the cultural background of the ancient Near East or ancient America. Second, the pervasive nature of the Gadianton robbers, who subverted Nephite and Lamanite society with secret societies involving secret oaths and combinations. A wave of anti-Masonic fervor swept the United States while Joseph Smith was dictating the Book of Mormon, with secret combinations being a common phrase in attacking the Masons. The Book of Mormon even warns of future secret societies on the American continent, saying that any nation tolerating such societies is at risk of destruction, and that's in Ether 8:20-22. Third, the polemic against Universalism in the Book of Mormon. Many of the villains of the book preach Universalism, which states that all mankind will be saved regardless of their faith in Christ. An order of Nehor rises up which preaches this doctrine, and Book of Mormon prophets such as Alma preach vigorously against it, often alluding to New Testament texts which were common in 19th century polemic against Universalism, despite the fact that the essentially ancient authors of the Book of Mormon had no access to the New Testament. A number of Universalist societies had arisen in the 19th century, and they were strongly criticized by evangelicals. Joseph Smith Sr. himself was partial to Universalism. Fourth, the repeated motif of the dead being heaped up and buried rapidly after battles in the Book of Mormon. Many in the 19th century saw the Indian mounds in North America as evidence of a mighty white-skinned civilization which had been brutally wiped out by a barbaric red-skinned civilization, the descendants of which were modern Native Americans. That this detail is called attention to in the Book of Mormon indicates that its background is speculation about the large mounds in North America, not a genuinely ancient Mesoamerican society. And it's important to note that the Book of Mormon appears to plainly state that the Lamanites were cursed with red skin because of their unfaithfulness. Now, contemporary LDS scholars have provided arguments for a metaphorical reading of such statements, but early Mormons really had no problem with taking these statements literally, because this idea of red skin being a sign of God's displeasure was very common in the 19th century, And LDS prophets continued to emphasize that if American Indians converted to Mormonism and were faithful, then their skin would gradually lighten over time. Now, this is by no means a complete case against the Book of Mormon as an ancient text. LDS scholars have developed a large amount of arguments for the ancient origin of the Book of Mormon, but I think that these 4 points should at least give a Latter-day Saint some pause in asking what the true date of the origin of the text of the Book of Mormon truly is. Thanks for listening.